Now I'm going to deal with the Bond photos. These are the Bond photos. I have 9 of them. This version I have comes from somebody named Gary Shaw. He did not give them to me directly. I found them somewhere online. I forget where now. But it's the best version of them I've seen. And they come from Gary Shaw is all I can tell you. I consider the Bond photos to be very important because even though she did not get a photograph of the actual assassination, I think that her photographs are very helpful in putting things together and determining what happened, especially her photographs which come after the assassination. And I'll be addressing the particulars of their helpfulness in the last part of this video. But first, I'm going to read from the FBI report of their interview with Wilma Bond. The interview was on February 14th, 1964, and the report apparently was typed up 4 days later on the 18th. Miss Wilma Bond is employed at Justin McCarty, Dallas, Texas, and was at her place of employment on November 22nd, 1963. Perhaps I should mention that Justin McCarty is a dressmaking concern. They make dresses just as Abraham Zapruder did. I'm not aware of there being any reason to think that Bond and Marie Muchmore have anything to do with Zapruder, but that should be mentioned, I think. She advised that she and Mrs. Marie Muchmore had departed work approximately 1 hour prior to the arrival of the presidential motorcade at the corner of Main and Houston Streets. She stated she would estimate that they were standing at the corner of Houston and Main Streets for approximately 45 minutes prior to the arrival of the motorcade. She related that they stationed themselves on the northwest corner of Main and Houston Streets, where they could look east on Main Street in the direction the motorcade would arrive from. Miss Bond made available several 35mm color slides that she had taken of the motorcade as it arrived at the corner of Houston and Main Streets and as it proceeded north on Houston Street, with the last photograph being taken as the motorcade was approximately 100 feet from the corner of Main and Houston Streets. She stated that due to her location, she had not taken any photographs, which would include the Texas School Book Depository building. She also made available for examination several 35mm color slides taken after the shooting, and the motorcade had departed the area. She stated that due to the excitement, she did not obtain any photographs at the time of the shooting. She also advised, to the best of her knowledge, she heard at least 3 shots fired at the time of the incident, but that due to the excitement, she does not recall the exact number. Miss Bond advised that she did not at any time look in the direction of the Texas School Book Depository building, nor did she observe anything of the individuals in that area which would have caused her concern. Examination of photographs taken by Miss Bond revealed that none of the photographs had the Texas School Book Depository building in the background. And that's it. That's all I know of the authorities talking to Wilma Bond. And now getting to their usefulness, to me anyway. The first Bond photo, taken as the motorcyclists come around the corner here, show several people who I find to be of interest. Number one, I'm not sure which one of these 2 guys it is, but one of them standing on the pole there is Jerry Coley, who saw the puddle of blood, which I find to be J.D. Tippett's blood, but I won't get into the details here. Number 2, I believe, is Rip Robertson of the CIA, and number 3, I believe, is Ted Shackley of the CIA. And below this picture, I have the Alkins 4 photo, which I found to be more helpful in my identification of these people. And I've drawn a line from the Bond photo, the person in the Bond photo, to the person in the Alkins photo, so that you can see them in both if you like. Number 3 here, that's Ted Shackley. Number 4 is Jay Skaggs. He took photography, still photography. It's interesting to me in the Bond photo here, it looks like he's holding a movie camera just by the way he seems to be holding it. I can't be sure about that, but his photographs are still photographs, and I can't tell in the Alkins anything about his camera. Number 5 is a babushka lady, but it's not the one that you see on Elm Street. I think it's Mary Pinchot Meyer. I made that identification based upon her appearance in the Alkins 4 photo and other photography of her that can be found online. And I won't get into the details of her. And number 6 is Raincoat Cop W.H. Denham. And some of those same people can be seen in the Bond 2 photo, but in addition to them, we have 2 that have been identified by people other than myself as Jim Braden and Garland Slack. Garland Slack, I think, is a far more important Dealey Plaza witness, even though he's better known as a rifle range witness. I wonder why he's better known in the less important witnessing. I don't know. Jim Braden, I won't get into Jim Braden here. I'm not sure that's Jim Braden, but I have seen people identify him as such. And in the Bond 3 photo, the additional people of interest to me are Barbara and Arnold Rowland, and particularly Arnold Rowland was an important witness who I think was hired as a witness prior to the assassination. I think he was one of Forrest Sorrell's pet projects, and I think that ultimately he was used, probably in addition to other things, to help coerce Eddie Piper into denying that Victoria Adams had come down the stairs before Truly and Baker went up. But let's not get off topic. The Bond 4 photo comes after the assassination, and I consider this one of the great classic photographs of the assassination. There are many people of interest in it, of interest to me in it, and I think it's just an awesome photograph. But just to quickly go over this, labeled number 1 here is Charles Brem and his son. Labeled number 2 is the Babushka lady. Labeled number 3 is Jean Hill and Marianne Moorman. Labeled number 4 is Bobby Hargis, who in a later interview said that he saw Roscoe White on the grassy knoll. And here he is coming back to his motorcycle after presumably having seen Roscoe White behind the picket fence. Number 5 is 2 of the stepmen. That's Mudd and Hudson. To me, this is most notable for the absence of the 3rd stepman, who has already left the scene, and I think he helped to bring Tippett's body to a waiting station wagon out back. Number 6, I identify as R.C. Nelson, who I believe took J.D. Tippett's car from Dealey Plaza and impersonated J.D. Tippett in Oak Cliff, and actually was the officer who fell to the ground after shots were fired, even though those shots did not hit him. And let's not get off on that. Number 7 is Apron Man's friend. I deem this to be very important, because at this time, Apron Man is not with his friend, even though in the Zapruder film he's standing right next to his friend, and I have videos talking about what that means. Number 8 is Gail and Bill Newman, 2 very important witnesses, and their 2 children there. Number 9 is James Alkins, the photographer, who I think is also an important actor in the faking of photography. And number 10, Zapruder and Sitzman. You can't see them here, but they are inside the pergola shelter. And number 11 is the Hesters, whom I say were involved with, or they were supposed to be involved with getting rid of a handbag in which Mrs. Chisholm had been carrying, and her handbag was switched with another, which I think had a short gun in it, and Mrs. Chisholm took that away out of Dealey Plaza. The Hesters were supposed to get rid of the other handbag, but didn't, for reasons I get into in other videos. So this, to me, is a classic photo of the assassination in its composition, its appearance, and its significance. I love it. And this is the Bond 5 photo. The two people of interest, in addition to others I have mentioned, are circled in red there. That's Clyde Haygood, the officer who responded to Chief Curry's directive to get a man on top of that overpass and see what happened up there. Well, he's just about to get up to the overpass in the Bond 5 photo. And the other person of interest, circled in blue on the right there, is dark-complected man who was one of the Assassination players who signaled the throat shot, which came from the overpass up near where Clyde Haygood is right now. And also that signal was to signal the audio decoy shot from Junior Jarman on the 5th floor of the Texas School Book Depository. Great stuff. And the Bond 6 photo here. This shows some people of interest. Starting over on the left, that, I think, is probably Amos Ewens. And by that I mean the 11-year-old black boy who is associated with the character created by Forrest Sorrells by the name of Amos Ewens. But I'm not going to get into explaining that. I think that's probably Amos Ewens before he has got to the railroad yard where Sergeant Harkness found him. Moving toward the center, circled in red, that's Jim Darnell, a photographer. And then 1 and 2 up there in blue. Number 2 is, according to my determination, Alan Tippett, the son of J.D. Tippett. And number 1 is a boy who was with him in Dealey Plaza. I think his name might be Bridwell, but I'm not sure about that. And Alan Tippett was involved in the assassination plan. He took the old handbag, that is the handbag that Mrs. Chisholm started with. He took that, and I think he was supposed to drop it off to the Hesters, but the Hesters had run off. So he's actually carrying the handbag here, even though we can't see that. Can't see that in this photo. And here is the Bond 7 photo. It shows a dark-complected man on the left there, circled in red, continuing to walk west. There's another photograph, not a Bond photo, which shows him apparently walking up the grassy slope towards the overpass, which is interesting, but it's not as clear a photo. But anyway, staying on the Bond photos here. On the right, that's Danny Arche walking towards the Pergola shelter. I identified him in a Skaggs photo. Here I wouldn't have been sure, but I see now that he is also in this Bond photo. And that's the Bond 7. And this is the Bond 8 photo, as I'm calling them. They're not consistently numbered everywhere you go, so don't depend on my numbering. This, once again, it shows a dark-complected man on the left, having gone a little further. And it shows A.J. Milliken, an important witness in my estimation because he gave a very impressively accurate description of the shot sequence, in my opinion. Not perfect, but very better than anybody else. And this is also important to me because it shows him walking west. And according to his affidavit, he said after the shooting, he went on back to work. So that means he works on the overpass. And I have a video about how that is involved with the fence trick. And the last photo, Bond 9, shows Milliken walking further west. And very recently I just realized that Apron Man, circled in blue here, is in this photo. My impression before in the other photography was that he was not walking up here, but that's Apron Man walking towards the Pergola shelter. And interestingly, I think the Babushka lady also is up here. So that's it for the Bond photos. I think they're very nice looking photos for a cheap little box camera, and that they're very important to understanding what happened.